Good afternoon and praise the Lord. My name is Kawumi. I'm a member of the pastoral team of Blessed Christian Church, Mukono. I'm glad to be talking to us this afternoon about a subject I'm very passionate about. I'll be talking about parenting. I'm a mother of 6 children, 5 girls and 1 boy. My eldest daughter turned 18 recently. Now, I must agree, I don't know all that there is about parenting, but I'd love to share my experiences and tips that I've gained through raising these children, attending parenting seminars, words shared by friends and peers, and more so other parents. I'm eager to share this because when I look back to my parenting journey, there are several things I would have loved to do differently. But I didn't do them differently. One, because I did not have the information. Unfortunately, it was to the detriment of the recipients, that is my children. So I would like to share this out of the depths of my heart. And my prayer is somebody somewhere will have the information at hand to raise these children, which God has given to us not only as gifts, but as responsibility. So I'd start by defining parenting. Parenting or child rearing is the process of promoting and supporting physical, emotional, social, spiritual, intellectual development of a child from infancy to adulthood. Let's note that there are 5: physical, emotional, social, spiritual, intellectual. Sometimes, we tend to focus on one area of development and ignore the other one. And it shows up later, either in the adulthood or when they try to relate with other people at whatever stage. So it is important when we are raising children, we should know that all these 5 areas should be taken care of. The primary purpose of parenting is to raise fully functional adults who can take care of themselves and make a positive contribution to society. We should raise up children who at one point they'll be able to take care of themselves physically, financially, economically, emotionally, socially. If you have a child who is still depending on you, on your emotional support in their late years, then we need to revisit our parenting method. Now, to succeed as parents has never been more challenging than it is today. It almost seems to be a little bit more difficult than the years back. The good news is the rewards are worth all the risk, the work, the sacrifice, the anxiety, and sometimes the tears that, we put in as we're raising these children. Parenting takes practice. I was just thinking to myself, we endeavor to do our best at our places of work because we either get financial or emotional rewards. What if we approach parenting with the same attitude? For most of us, parenting is an acquired skill learned through many humiliating mistakes and failures at the expense of beneficiaries, just as I said as I was starting out. Now, as much as I'm going to talk about parenting, let me acknowledge the fact that parenting is an extremely broad subject. And it varies from continent to continent, nation to nation, culture to culture, and sometimes even within the family itself. The way Africans raise their children may not be the same way Asians raise their children. Maybe even though the Europeans raise their children may not be the same way, the other people from other continents raise their children. And if I were to come down to my own country, probably the way the Baganda tribe raises their children may not be the same way the Banyankole raise their children. So parenting is an extremely broad subject. But as extreme as it is, we have the general and the basic things that go into parenting. So I'm going to avoid the specifics and just look at the general raising up of a child. I'll also be quick to add that although books and seminars and parenting talks may not give all the answers, it is worth giving them an ear because you will get a lighthouse on a dark sea or a beacon of hope when you're in troubled circumstances. So let me go to the general parenting ways. A child needs physical, okay, let me talk about the needs parenting needs that we should focus on. I say the physical needs, emotional needs, intellectual needs, spiritual needs, and social needs. So starting with the physical needs, our children need shelter, warmth, clothing, nutritious food, physical exercise, plenty of fresh air, a safe environment, time and space to play. Some of them are so obvious because we go out, buy clothes for our children to keep them warm. And some of them are, for example, food. We give our children food, but sometimes it's not as nutritious as it should be. We need to pay extra attention to the type of food we give our children because these are building blocks to their future. Try to give your children as organic food as much as possible. Food that comes straight from the garden. Carrots, vegetables, fruits. Let's try to avoid processed food like pizzas, gorillas. I know many of these processed things that we find on shelves, you know. And the good thing is when you give your children organic food, they also tend to ask where does the food come from. And you can get an opportunity to explain to a child the growth from seed to the plant itself, and then to its giving out the fruit or the seed. But most of this processed food, they don't have, they don't present, you know, an opportunity for discussion. Okay, so physical needs, let me repeat, a child needs shelter, warmth, clothing, nutritious food, physical exercise, plenty of fresh air, a safe environment, time and space to play. Emotional needs. A child needs love, affection, care, affirmation, and support. Now, for many families, there seems to be a disconnect between buying children gadgets and toys and meeting the emotional needs. Let's remember that these gadgets cannot meet the emotional needs of our children. Gadgets are not expressive. A gadget cannot hug you when you need to be hugged. A gadget cannot cry with you when you need to cry. A gadget cannot laugh with you or understand what you're going through generally. So as much as we buy these gadgets for our children, let us still be there with them, even as they play with these gadgets. It has been proven that emotional neglect does the most damage to children because it leaves a permanent scar on a child's self-esteem and well-being. Most adults that have had challenges relating to other people have had emotional scarring, and that only happened because probably parents were so busy, they were not there for these children. And it left an emotional gap, a vacuum in this child, which it tends to be quite hard to be met as we grow. Now, children that are also left alone or unsupervised and they don't have regular one-on-one time with the parents frequently have unmet emotional needs. We should know that the time we spend with our children is when we are imparting or giving out to them the importance of values, morals, and respect, not only for self, but for others. So spending quality time with our children should be a priority. Intellectual needs. When you're talking about intellectual needs, we're talking about understanding information, reasoning, learning, remembering, problem solving, thinking, how to maintain attention span. This has all been pushed to the education system. But this should be done at home by parents. It is us parents to teach our children how to process information. It is us to teach our children how to reason. We are the ones to teach our children how to solve problems. It may not be that formalized way of doing it in the classroom, but the more we relate with them and spend time with them at home, probably as we send them to the shops or ask them to do different activities in the home, for example, cleaning and that type of stuff, they learn how to solve problems. They learn how to think. They learn how to reason. Even kids who have had a challenge with attention span, this can be taught from home, unless it's a medical issue. A child who was born with a medical issue and cannot keep in one place for long. A parent can train their child to maintain a certain attention span. And of course, as they grow, you keep increasing their time. So let's not push the intellectual needs of our children to the educational system. It may not do it as well because there are so many children under one teacher. And for them to specifically come down to your child and teach them all these things, it becomes a bit of a challenge. Let's encourage our children to read widely and wisely. Now, as they grow older, let's help them with their homework and studies, patiently answering their questions and explaining. Let's encourage the skills and talents. This will be developing and promoting their intellectual needs and meeting them. Now, let's talk about the spiritual needs of our children. Spirituality seems to be a dimension most of us are very scared to venture in. Even the religious people, we would rather have it taught by the so-called religious people, pastors, priests, deacons. But when it comes down to the daddy, mommy, we tend to fear spirituality. Spirituality is a dimension all of us are born with, and it's something that we start thinking about, or we start getting aware of in our childhood. So it should be something that we should not ignore as parents. So the question is, how should I handle my child's spiritual needs? As I said, it's important for us to remember that we are all born with a spiritual antenna. Let me use that word, a spiritual antenna. Somehow in our being, there's something that is searching for something that is not seen, that is not touched, something that is not subject to change. And when we nurture these things in our homes, we meet our children's spiritual needs. Now, children appear to have an inbuilt curiosity about the world, which expresses itself in wonder and awe. That's why you find them asking questions. For example, if somebody passed on, where did grandma go? Or where did grandpa go? Because they do not see the people still there. But somehow they have a feeling that probably that person is still somewhere. Now, such questions need to be answered. When we try to answer some of these questions, we're meeting our children's spiritual needs. Somebody said, the reason why the Harry Potter books have flourished is an indicative of the spiritual needs of our children. They want to know what is out there, what is the mystery out there. Now, as a parent, it is important that you guide a child's spiritual needs, because it's very possible for them to hit left, right, center, and hit anything. The world is wide, and so are the spiritual needs, and so are the spiritual things that can meet those needs. Let us mind our children's spiritual needs. I could just add something a little bit more about children's spiritual needs. Remember that kids are literal thinkers. Even though their spirits have been, I'm looking for the right word, heightened, or what word can I use? They are alert, okay, but they tend to conceptualize and understand these things using the physical things. So, for example, if you say that grandma passed on and went to heaven, when you mention that, they will definitely look up into the skies, because looking to see if grandma is there, because they're little thinkers. And then another thing you should know, that just because God is an abstract concept, it doesn't mean that the children are still too young to learn about faith. No. Kids learn about so many abstract concepts. They learn about kindness, which you cannot see. They learn about compassion, which you cannot see. They learn about so many things, but they still are able to comprehend them. So let's not ignore the spiritual development of our children. Now, let me talk about the social development or social needs of our children. Our children need to know that they are loved. They need to be loved and have a sense of self-worth. Children need to know that there's someone who will go to the ends of the earth for them, to show them that they matter. Children need a sense of predictability and a sense of control. Parents should be predictable. They should structure the day of their children with predictable routines. Don't wake up today at 10, then tomorrow at 1, then at 5. It just puts the child at an imbalance, Children who have daily routines feel more secure about their days, because those days are predictable. And it has also been proven that children who tend to come from homes that have predictable routines, they tend to settle much easier into school routines. Children need to know that their emotions, which sometimes overwhelm them, are normal. They need their parents to stay calm in the face of their feelings and probably give their feelings a name, and then give them a healthy way and a safe way to express these feelings. Sometimes when a child is throwing a tantrum, they're just expressing a feeling, but they need guidance. They need a parent or somebody who is older to let them know that, okay, well, you may be feeling very unhappy about this particular thing, but you do not have to throw the tantrum for your need to be met. Can we do something differently? So children need to know that though they may have overwhelming emotions, it is normal. But then there are safe and healthy ways to express these feelings or to express these emotions. And then children need to enjoy relationships and have a sense of belonging. They need to know that if they are not in the world, someone would miss them. They need to know that their parents are glad they are theirs and can count on their parents to be there for them. Children should never be made to feel like they are burdens. As a parent, even if you're going through a very hard time and probably you're forced to do work that is very strenuous, that is very manual, whatever you want to call it anyway, because I think every work, as long as it's legal, I think every work is okay. But if you ever get to a point where because of your children you have to do that, never make your children feel like they are burdens. Let the children know that it's because they are worth it. That's why you're going out to do all that you're doing. Not because it's a burden, not because you have to put food on the table, not because you have to pay their fees that if they are not there, you wouldn't be struggling. No, let them know that I'm glad you're here, that even though I have to go through all this, I will still go the extra mile. You are worth the job I'm doing. You're worth the time I spend out there. You're worth the cold that I have to go through. Or you're worth probably the reprimands I have to go through from my boss because I love you. So children need to feel that they are loved, that their parents are glad that they have them. Now, still talking about the social needs, learn to sense your children's fears. Kids tend to sense insecurity much faster than we do. If a child comes to you and says, I feel I'm not comfortable with somebody in the environment, let's not throw that away. Because to you, it may just be, maybe my child is not socially inclined. Maybe my child does not want to interact with so and so, but that may not be the issue. This child could have seen something beyond, or they just don't feel comfortable with this particular person or to be in that particular environment. Learn to sense your children's fears and then handle them accordingly. Do some research about what the child is talking about. If you feel it's safe enough for the child to continue in that environment, allay that child's fears. Let the child know it's okay, that if anything happens, I'm there. But be comfortable. I have checked, I have done the research, all is well. Now, talking about that, both emotional and social needs, let's remember to have some balance. Let's not bring up our children in a way that they get to a point where they cannot survive without us. Especially when we're talking about the emotional and social needs. Sometimes our kids get so attached to us that when they're not there, they become social wrecks. I know of so many stories of children whose parents passed on. And if I may just be specific, I had a friend in her mid-20s. Her mother passed on. And 3 days later, this young girl passed on too. And the issue was she just could not live without her mother. Actually, she kept on saying, how do I live without my mother? How do I live without my mother? Remember, we said that parenting is to promote these people to adulthood, to a place where they are resourceful to the society. So if your child is so dependent on you, then they stop being resourceful to the society. So let us have balance. As we bring up these children, let's train them to be strong emotionally, to be strong physically, to be strong intellectually, to be strong spiritually and socially, that even when we are not there, they're able to handle life as it comes. They're able to handle the challenges that we have in this world, because challenges will definitely come, and we are not omnipresent. We can't always be there for our children. We cannot always be there to stand against the physical challenges, against the bullies, against the, whatever the world will throw at them. So as we raise up these children, let us have that at the back of our minds. We are raising these children to get to a point where they're able to take care of themselves and make a positive contribution to society. Now, having said this, I know I have not mentioned all the physical needs, all the emotional needs, all the spiritual needs, because they are so varied and there's so many. The question would be, so who is competent to parent? How do I parent and yet I'm supposed to meet all these needs? This is one person. I meet the emotional needs, I meet the physical needs, I meet the social needs, I meet the intellectual needs, I meet the spiritual needs. Who is competent to parent? And actually, somebody said that there is no one who is competent to parent, that all children or kids who grow up and become integrated in society, they happen by accident. I want to disagree with that statement. It is not true. People do not grow and become responsible adults by accident. It is because, one, the grace of God, and two, effort by their parents too. They may make mistakes, of course, but there's some effort by parents to bring this to a particular point. So talking about a competent parent, what should I look for if I'm looking for? If I want to be assured that I am doing my work as a parent well, I'm going to give us a few pointers, there are about 9 or 10, which can give us a base or can give us confidence in our parenting journey. Number 1, be an assured parent. Be confident that you can succeed as a parent. I know the world is wild and there's so many forces that come against parenting, so many challenges that come against parenting, but by all means, believe in your ability to succeed as a parent, because whatever you will do, its basis will stand in or will come out of that confidence that I know that I am a good parent. I know I can parent. I know I can do this. Just the same way you can go to an office and you have to do your work. You tell yourself, I know I can be an accountant. Try to cultivate that same mentality when it comes to parenting. Kids may be complex, yes, but truth be told, we can parent and parent our children well. So number 1 is be assured that you can succeed as a parent. Build your confidence. If you feel that you're lacking confidence in that area, read books. Talk to people who have parented, get information. And to top it up, talk to God, because it's God who gives children. And he understands them better than anybody, better than any book, better than any friend, better than any peer. So get information, talk to God about it, but just ensure that at the bottom or at the bottom of your heart, you have the assurance and the confidence that you will make a good parent. Then number 2, be an attentive parent. Many of us are parents, we are assured parents, but we fail to give our children the attention that they need. Children seek and need attention. If they don't get it from you, they'll get it from somebody else or from somewhere else. And many times from the places that children get the attention from may not be places you may want to, you may approve of. So be an attentive parent, because what they really want when they come to you is guidance in the evolving process of self-discovery. Listen to them. Don't just listen half-heartedly. Let me make the statement this way. Listen when you hear them. Because you can hear somebody, but you're not listening. So listen when you hear them. Join them when you are with them. Look upon your child's request. If a child comes and says, Mommy or Daddy, read to me, or tell me a story, don't look at it as an interruption, but as the most honored invitation to shape an immortal soul. So let's listen. Be an attentive parent. One of the most common complaints or typical reaction from children is they say, but my parents don't understand me. Truth is, the probability to understand your child is heightened when you listen attentively to them. When you listen to them, you'll be able to understand or hear their inner questions. Sometimes a child may ask a question and it may sound to be very superficial, but behind that question, there's something else the child is looking for. So listen, be an attentive parent, I repeat. Listen to your child and let them know that you're listening. One of the best ways to make a child know that you're listening to them is to ensure you have eye-to-eye contact. For the little ones, you could get down to your knees so that you're not too high, but you're not looking down on them. Just get down to your knees and look them in the eye. So when the child says something, they will know that mommy or daddy has heard what I'm saying. For the teenagers, the best thing would be probably you put a seat, both of you sit down and you listen. The bottom line is whichever way you choose to go about it, be an attentive parent. So that is the second point. The third point is be an available parent. Simply be there when the children need you. I know somebody would ask, but in this busy life, when can I be available for my children? If you have a job that does not accord you time, and you work from 4 a.m. in the morning to about 11 p.m., in the evening, don't get time for your children, then you are too busy. I would think it would be best to get another job that does not demand so much time from you. Because at the end of the day, these children will grow, get out of your hands, and you will not have the opportunity to instill the things you would have loved to instill in them when they're still young. The window that we have to parent our children is really, really small. It's amazing how time flies by when you have children. When you don't have children, time tends to drag. 365 days are 365 days. When you have children, 365 days is one day just divided in day and night. So you find if you spend most of your time out there working, these children will grow, and before you know it, they're at university and they have gone. And then you will not have time to instill anything in them. It is funny how adults look back to their childhood and they're kind of regretful that their parents were not there. I had friends at university who would say, but you're lucky that your daddy and mommy were there, you know. I grew up as a tree in the forest. Now, the person whom I was talking to, he was working. Actually, he was even paying his university fees. Now, it's a kind of person you'd look and think, oh, this person is doing well. I mean, he has control of his life. Yet, from the way he was talking, you could see there was that gap. There was that longing for daddy and mommy to have been available. So you find that even the money he was making it couldn't even do or cover up for the pain or the longing that this person had. He missed his childhood. In fact, that's what they usually say, but I miss my childhood. So can we be available parents? Even when we buy gadgets for our children, let us play with them. Buy that doll or buy that car and get down to your knees on the carpet and drive the car or whatever you do. Play with the child. If you cannot afford sophisticated gifts, still there's so many things we can use, so many materials from the house we can use to play with our children. You could get flour, maybe wheat flour, and mold animals. The options are so immense. If I were to go into them now, there's so many. Many of the things that you need may not need money if you do not have the money. The basic thing is be available for the children. Give up the right to uninterrupted tranquility. The right to uninterrupted peace. Children are not a stream that is trickling gently through the ordered garden of your life. No. Be grateful for every moment you have with them, because it's just gracious time that God has given you to enjoy. And every time means the times when they're pleasing and the times when they're not pleasing. So be available, whether your child is pleasing or your child is not pleasing to you. When your child is behaving well or when your child is not behaving well, be an available parent. These things you will reap at the end, whether in this life or in the life to come. Count them as seeds that you are sowing, and you will reap the harvest later. Now, number 4. I said number 1, be an assured parent. Number 2, be an attentive parent. Number 3, I said be an available parent. Number 4, I'm saying be affectionate. I don't know what better word to say, but love, 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 and love your children. Love them when they're dirty. Love them when they have a running nose. Love them when they have let you down in public. Just love your children. Say it, show it, share it. Love is still the divine word. Love your child as someone who needs you desperately. Love them when they score poorly at school. Love them when they seem to be defiant. Love them when they seem to be rebellious. Love your children. Be affectionate. Imagine this child is you, but many years rolled back. And then put yourself in this child's shoes and then respond in love. You try to imagine you're the one who has been defiant. How would you want your daddy to respond towards you? Or I'm just using that as an example, but just love your children. And whichever way, just love them. Don't even try to make love systemized and scientific, looking for a particular love language. Children just love to be loved. You being there is love in itself. You answering their questions is love in itself. Just love the children. Along the way, as they grow up, you'll find the specific way they prefer you to offer love to them. But start somewhere. Just love them. Don't get stuck in the modern day language of looking for the love language of your child. No, just love your child. They want your love. They want your love. In fact, research has proven that some of the children who misbehave, it's because they're looking for love. They could have missed that part in their lives. So now they start acting out, looking for love, looking for someone to understand them. So let us love our children. I don't know which better way to say it. I will just say, love them. Demonstrate unconditional, non-judgmental love now and always. Number 5, be an authoritative parent. I know these are very sticky points because we are in a generation where everyone's say matters and everyone must be consulted before decisions are taken. But there's a reason as to why you're much older. You have experienced life. You look at life from so many angles. You have seen life from the economic sense. You have seen life from the social sense. You have seen life from the emotional, psychological. I mean, you have seen life more than these little ones have seen life. Let us remember that authority is God ordained, and children will learn to honor and submit to authority by honoring and submitting to your authority. Be an authoritative parent. Now, authoritative parent is different from a tyranny. Do not be a kind of parent who is so authoritative that your children hide when you are around. Or they just fear you, they're trembling. I know of parents who say, when my little one sees me coming towards them, they start or they put their hands over their heads because they're not sure what mom is going to do. Maybe beat them, just throw their authority around. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where a person who takes decisions in a home and enforces them. Because a big part of your parenting is being the parent and not your child's friend. You should make the rules and enforce them. You're done to give advice, you're done to give love, you're done to give care, you're done to give respect. You are the role model in that home. So it is you to give the positive role modeling in that home. It is you who should encourage the behaviors. You set the atmosphere, you set the trend in the home, not the children. So be an authoritative parent. If you as a parent, if you do not assert, let me use the word assert just for the sake of this afternoon. If you do not assert your authority in the home, there'll be a vacuum. And sooner or later, the kids will be the ones ruling the home. It becomes a very uncomfortable situation to be in. So be an authoritative parent. Number 6, Be an aspiring parent. Aspire for the sake of your children. A principal talking to some parents gave them this advice. He said, give your children goals. Because most children who have goals stay out of trouble. What he was actually meaning was, set goals for your children. For example, you could tell a child, I want you to finish reading this book in the next 2 days. And ensure that the child does that in the next 2 days. Do not set goals and then you keep moving they call them the goalposts, without proper reason. If the child falls sick within the 2 days, then you'll have reason to push the goalposts further. But if your child has been well and the child has the time, if after those 2 days the child comes back and they are not done with the assignment you gave them, then they need to explain to you why. And if they do not have proper reasons as to why, then there should be consequence. So be an aspiring parent for your child. Set goals for these children. Do not fear that you're imposing, your desires on them. They'll grow up and change to whatever profession they would really love to be. But you can tell them, I want you to learn how to play this instrument. They may complain and, say, no, I don't want, it is hard to learn, but say, no, I want you to learn how to play this instrument. Funny enough, as they grow older and get into their teens or whatever, that's if you started much earlier, they start appreciating that, you know what, I'm glad I started learning how to do this thing. Maybe it could be art, But the bottom line is set goals for these children. Let them have things they're trying to aim for, a life they're trying to get to, whether in a week, in a day, in a year, in a month, whatever it is, set goals for them. You could also give them an aspiring example. Set goals for yourself so they can also see mommy and daddy reaching out for something and, attaining the goals. So be an aspiring parent. Number 7, discipline your children. Another very sticky point. But we cannot do without discipline. We must discipline our children. I think why this point became sticky is because of the way some parents administer discipline. We need to make a distinction between disciplining and punishing. Some of us, in the process of disciplining our children, we punish them, we terrorize them and make them, almost hate to be alive. But children must be disciplined. Remember, they do not know everything. And a child who is not disciplined feels unloved. As much as you might think that they enjoy the freedom, or as much as you might think that they enjoy that they're able to do whatever they want to do without anybody telling them that you should stop doing this or doing that, it has been discovered, research has proved that children who lack discipline, they feel unloved. And much later, of course, in the years as they grow, they start expressing this. But my mommy never told me not to lie, or my dad never told me not to do this. So while it may look nice or pleasant to you at this point when they're still little, they'll get to a point in life when they wish, and even you as a parent, you start wishing that you had done what? You had disciplined your children. Maybe some of the key points we should note while disciplining our children is, let's keep our emotions balanced. Because when your emotions are out of bounds, chances of you disciplining this child beyond what he should get are very high. That is number 1. But then also, chances of you disciplining or giving a correction that is inappropriate to the mistake are also very high. So keeping our emotions in control is very key when it comes to the area of disciplining. We also must remember, especially when we're talking about those of us who are born again, that you cannot pray for discipline. You have to inculcate discipline in a child. You have to instill discipline in a child. Now, the disciplining of your child reveals your parenting skills greatly, greatly, greatly. So let us discipline our child. Don't pray for character. You shape your child's character, mold your child's character. It's still under discipline. Don't think you go to God and say, God, please make my child loving. No. You have to shape this child's character, and it will also involve disciplining this child. So number 7, we should discipline our children. Number 8, let us teach our children humility. Now, humility is different from low self-esteem. I know many of us parents love our children, and we feel that the biggest and the greatest things that this world has ever seen. And it is so true. Every mother or every father's child is the biggest thing, is the latest thing the world has ever seen. But let us be careful not to indoctrinate our children. They get to a point where they feel they're so awesome. They're so great. They get a bloated self-esteem that they even fail to fit into society. Humility is a virtue that all children should learn, and they can only learn if they're taught by their parents. When we praise our children, when we affirm them, when we rejoice and celebrate what they have done, let's also learn to incorporate humility in that. Because then they will grow up knowing that there are levels we cannot get to. We are human beings just like anybody else around us. Children who are not taught humility, if the world sends their way, let me use the word, a low-paying job, they become resentful. Why? Because they feel that what they're doing is really something well far beyond or below them. But if a child is taught humility, they can rise. They can start from whatever level where they are and rise to whichever level they would love to be at the end of the day. So as parents, let's learn and teach our children humility. And second last is, do not brood over your failures. I said for most of us parents, we have learned parenting on the job through humiliating mistakes, through failures. And most times it's our children who suffer our failures and our mistakes. You are bound to make mistakes. You have not been a parent before. You are bound to make mistakes, but don't allow your mistakes and your failures to become your everyday companion. Our sins and weaknesses, even if they have harmed your children, remember, even your parents' sins and weaknesses also harmed you. And at one point, your children's own sins and weaknesses will at one point harm their children. So do not brood over your failures. Let us remember that even as we are parenting, there is grace. God has given us grace, and grace is able to turn even the most painful scenario into a joyful scenario. But that can only happen if you move from that point of brooding over the problems and over the failures and bringing this mistake to God and acknowledging it and saying, God, I'm really sorry. I think I beat my child more than I should have. Or I think I sent my child for time out for too long. Or I think I denied this child this, whatever it is. Let us recognize our faults, confess them honestly to God, and even sometimes the very children that we have, the children whom we have wronged. I mean, most of us parents fail to, or fear, or I don't know whether it is just pride, fear to get to our kids and tell them, I'm sorry. It is a good thing. If you've done something that is not good, go to your child and say, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have responded the way I responded. Or I should have listened to you when you are saying this. Children are amazing. They're very forgiving. They're resilient. Even those mistakes that you have made, they kind of tend to bounce up out of the mistakes that you have made. The key point here is, do not brood over failures. Failures will come. Mistakes will come. We are not perfect. We will make those mistakes. Just get them. Every weakness, confess to God and confess to your child if you have to. The damage, by the way, that you may have inflicted may be less than you think. Because sometimes you think, I must have harmed this child emotionally, psychologically, whatever it is. Maybe the scars have gone so deep. But that may not be the case. That may not be the case. And even if they did go deep, always remember that there's a God in heaven who is watching and walking with you along this parenting journey. He understands. He is a parent himself. He has parented so many children. Some of them came out great. Some of them, interestingly, but he understands all of us. The psalmist, David says in one of his psalms that God understands our frame. He understands our weaknesses. So you make a mistake, get over it. And getting over it means go to God, acknowledge it, repent, and repent to your child. Children move on. And finally, let's give our children a faith to live by. Whether we want to believe it or whether we believe it or not, God is alive. There is a supreme being. There is a being that is in control of all these things that we see around us, whom we'll be accountable to at one point in life. So let us give our children a faith to live by, because a time will come in their lives when you are not there, their friends are not there, and they have this challenge and they need somebody whom they can talk to, somebody who can grant them grace to move through a particular challenge or through some circumstances. If they do not have God, many of our children have resorted to other things, probably like drugs or smoking. And I'm not saying it is across board. I'm saying some of them. Probably because they had nobody else to talk to. Maybe they couldn't tell their friends because their friends had betrayed them. Because it comes to a point in life where you need somebody you can trust and know that they will not tell my secrets out. Sometimes human beings will fail in that area. But we know that you can tell God something and it will be kept for eternity. Nobody will ever get to know. Okay, but just in case your child gets to that point, if you never gave them a faith to live by, you have done them an injustice. They will go through life, they will go through storms, they will go through hard times with no solution or with no one to run to or to fall back to. Let us give our children a faith to live by. And how do we do it? When we ourselves are going through hard times, let our children see us talking to God. And then when the children see us talking to God and see God answering our prayers, when they're also going through the hard times, they'll also talk to God and they will also see God answering their prayers. Hallelujah. So I'm glad to share these 10 pointers of a successful parent. I know there's so much more that I could talk about, but as I said, parenting is a very broad subject. You cannot condense it into 1 hour. Going forth, we'll have more conversations on how to parent our children. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I hope you picked a few points here and there that will help you in this parenting journey so that you're not overwhelmed or you don't feel like, oh goodness, my child is a monster I cannot handle. You might find that all the child needs is attention or some little love, and they stop, acting up or behaving in strange ways. So once again, thank you so much for taking your time to listen to this. God bless you and enjoy parenting.